Otherwise, we are recording the session for them. I see you guys there in the chats. Aya saying, how's it, man? What's good? How was the week, man? How was the week? I will learn this session from Kaya. Nice, guys. Kaya and Aya in the building. Aware, guys. Aware. Otherwise, let's get started, guys. Let's get started with some AC. So I've got our list of pairs, and then I think I've got two extra pairs there that we can get into if we need to. But otherwise, let's do the things to be done. So AC is not going to look very different from it did last week, but there is an addition. I guess we just need to speak about it. Let's speak about it. So basically, higher time frame, we've got momentum. We've got this corrective structure here. We want to trade in the direction of this momentum here. We've also got higher time frame. There is momentum to the upside, and we've got this corrective structure there. So that's kind of why we're positioning ourselves long, or we want to position ourselves long to maybe catch any swings if there are any swings that do happen on AC. Nonetheless, if we just look at just the most recent daily structure over here, you guys can see that we're still inside of this corrective structure there. Price, if it wants to, can come down to give us another support, another test of support, or whatever the case is. See, someone else joined us there. Let me just minimize that window. Cool. So otherwise, price action can come down to give us another support or another low, test of the low, or whatever the case is. But let's go down to the 4 hours. So all we're doing from a daily perspective is just kind of positioning ourselves, whether we want to go long, whether we want to go short. And then obviously we build on that idea, the lower the time frames we drop. So is there anything else that we need to speak about here from a daily? Or let me just remove this. There we go. Okay, let's speak about it on a 4 hour. I feel like it'll be okay for us to speak about this most recent structure on a 4 hour. Maybe if we want to, what we can do is we can just adjust this trend line. Okay, let's just leave it. Let's just leave it because I've got a reason why this trend line is here anyway. So we'll speak about it on a 4 hour. Cool. So from a daily perspective, we're long. Let's go down to a 4 hour. We find those POIs to find where will we be looking for our trading opportunities. Nonetheless, what I did was I did delete, we had a POI here from a 4 hour. I did delete this POI over there because obviously price action did week below that POI. So there's no point in us having it there because price has already deemed that point of interest invalid. So what we've got to do to be safe is just look at the most recent structure. And what we do have in the most recent structure is if we just look at the 4 hour, most recent 4 hour structure, we've got a downtrend, right? Solid downtrend, lows, lower highs, lower lows, lower highs, and then lower lows. So obviously this is the last move that managed to break a level of structure, which is obviously this support over here. So we're going to be looking at this move. If obviously we want to go against the overall grain of what's going on, we're in a downtrend. We must look at this last move here, understand that, okay, as long as we're inside of this last move, this is our extreme high, this is our extreme low, this is where buyers came in, this is where sellers came in. Obviously, if I want to be a buyer, I want to buy as low as possible, or at least where buyers came in. I want to be looking at that area there. If I want to be a seller, then I want to be looking at areas where I see sellers coming into the market. So nonetheless, let's just add a horizontal ray there at the low of this somewhat sort of a range, or whatever the case is. But nonetheless, price action is moving sideways inside of here. The reason why I have this trend line on here and I chose to leave it like this and not adjust and include for this new resistance that price action gave us here. The reason why is because I just looked at how did price action reject off this high versus how did price action reject off this high. And to me, this seems like it came in with a lot more aggression than this resistance or this move away from resistance here. So I feel like I want to keep it in my mind that this is more of somewhat of some sort of a false breakout, and there was no momentum behind this move. So I know that, okay, someone is being worked in some direction, whether it's buyers working the sellers or sellers working the buyers, someone is working someone, right? So we know that price action is accumulating or redistributing for lower price action, or obviously accumulating for higher price action. Let's get into what the plan is, right? So in the most recent price action here on a 4 hour, we've got price action giving us new lower lows. Okay, we had some sort of an ascending structure over here. Nonetheless, if we look at where the lows in this ascending structure are, whether you're looking at this low here or you're looking at this low here, we did obviously just break and give a new lower low. So obviously we still got characteristics of a downtrend. All we're going to wait for is just for price action to push lower. And obviously, once we come close to this low over here, that's when we start to look at AC to see, is AC giving us maybe perhaps some sort of a descending structure that we can trade a third touch or whatever the case is, because price action will develop, price action will give us more. It's unfortunate that we've got to do our analysis with the information that we have on the chart, but with patience, obviously, we give price an opportunity to develop. And with that new additional information, we'll be able to make a slightly better decision. So nonetheless, all we've got now is we've got this low, we've got the fact that price is in a downtrend. What we want to do is we want to trade at the low where we see other people buying over there at support. What we're going to do is we're not going to be looking to take any risk entries because there is no POI for us to be able to take a risk entry at this low. What we've got to do to be safe is we isolate the chart pattern, and then obviously we find a reduced risk entry, whether it's a double bottom, whether it's a whatever. We find a reduced risk entry obviously at our low, and that will be reason enough for us to be looking for the long. Now, regardless of whether or not price action breaks this low, or maybe even this low over here, which I was hoping that price action does not break, because this is our source of momentum that managed to give us new highs and all that nice good stuff. So obviously we're not expecting price action to break below this low, but maybe the play is a higher time frame double bottom where we play around this support over here. Because if we look at price action from a weekly, from a higher time frame, from a very, very, very higher time frame, just to remind you guys, if you guys ever don't look at weekly charts or higher time frames, just to see what's going on and clue yourself up. What's going on in a weekly is we've got this momentum shift over here. There's our bullish engulfing, or there's our higher high, higher close. So a nice weekly momentum shift. Obviously, where did this momentum start? That managed to break the resistances over there, levels of structure over there. That momentum gained some steam somewhere inside of here. So obviously you can see I marked the low of this POI. And I know that from a weekly, the moment we break below, even by 1 pip over here, then obviously price action is not, or was not, accumulating at this momentum shift. Instead, we were working the potential buyers, and sellers were going to continue to hold price. We just accepted what it is and we just roll with the punches. But nonetheless, from a weekly, you guys can see where we are from a weekly as well. We did come, we tapped into this, we saw someone was willing to buy. We're back inside of this momentum shift over there. Let's hope this buyer is still in the market, and let's hope they're still watching their MT4s to make decisions. Let's come back to where we were, because we want to be here about 4 hour. So everything is fairly simple. We're bullish on AC. Obviously, we just explained why we're going to be bullish. Let's just wait for the additional structure to develop over here. Let's not force anything yet. Like you guys can see, I drew this in pencil so that I can come back and erase it later. I didn't draw this resistance trend line with something that's solid. So let's not force any structures yet. Let's wait, see what happens on Monday when we look at the chart. Can we then add this additional resistance trend line to now start to look for buys below this low? But regardless of what you're doing, first of all, you're waiting for these equal lows to be broken, and then you're waiting for price action to obviously give you a reversal structure at this low, and that's going to give you the information you need to make your decision. Let's go on to the next pair. We're bullish. So AJ, nothing happening there on AJ for us. Let's just go straight to AU. So I'm gonna do AU, and then I'm gonna do one of the additional pairs that we've got here. I think cyan list. Yeah, we're gonna let's look at AU, and then where's this pair? Where is my New Zealand dollar? Oh, okay, New Zealand dollar, US dollar. I know that this pair and AUD USD are giving very similar setups. So let's look at AU first, and then we'll look at New Zealand dollar, US dollar as well, just so that we can see what are the similarities, what are the differences. And then obviously the reason why I'm doing this is because there's an opportunity not to hedge, but there's an opportunity to take better risk. And obviously both of these pairs both have dollar as the quote pair, so we'll be able to use some sort of correlation to see what is going on, because now we know that if we want to see both of these pairs move to the upside, we need to see a lot of dollar weakness. And obviously if both of these pairs are doing something similar, then probably we're seeing dollar weakness and not maybe AUD strengths that can still also move this pair up, same as NZD USD. Otherwise, let's get into the analysis. So reason why we're bullish is we've got this momentum. We can see price action took very short period of time. I always say if you're confused about which side the momentum is, there's a ruler thing over here. You click this ruler thing from the low to the high. you do that, and then you see, okay, that took 76 bars, but what you're interested in is how long did it take. It took 109 days from this support to this resistance, and then you do the same thing from that resistance, from the high down to the current low, and you can see that it's took 219 days to move down. It took 109 days. It literally took almost double to move down the amount of time that it did take to move up. So that shows you that momentum is to the upside because people are making decisive decisions when it comes to buying. No one was making a lot of decisive decisions when it comes to selling. Although the selling did give us, obviously, we've got a downtrend, characteristics of a downtrend, lower lows, lower highs, but they are corrective. This is very impulsive. So obviously I want to trade in direction of this new momentum that I see over there. We've got a corrective structure. Looking at context, where are we on the daily? We've got our support trend line, first touch, second touch. We're obviously at or around the support trend line here for a third touch. Also, if you guys look at maybe the candlesticks on the daily, just to get some context as to where price action is entering now. On a daily, we've got this big momentum shift over here. Obviously, you can see this engulfing higher high, higher close, nice momentum shift. We see buyers coming into the market over there. And obviously, if you guys can see where price action is now, we've tapped into this area twice, but we're playing in and around this area here where we've got that daily momentum shift. So obviously, we already can foresee what we're going to talk about when we go down to the 4 hour. On the 4 hour, what we're going to look for is we're going to look for price action to come deeper into this POI, obviously break below this low. And when we come deeper, we can isolate the structure if you want to isolate the structure, whatever the case is, but we've got this support here. When we come deeper, we look for that reversal structure because we're in an area where obviously we're expecting maybe buyers to be taking control at some point in time. So obviously, once price action comes below, they will wait for price action to work below. If we don't get a reduced risk entry below, because obviously we can't take a risk entry unless we found a POI on a 4 hour, that allows us to do that. If we don't find a reduced risk entry over here, then obviously we wait for break above our structure and then obviously our retest for upside continuation. But if we look at where we are within the structure, why not would I want to be a buyer at support trend line at momentum shift in the direction of this momentum? And obviously risk to reward ratio, I've also got, if I'm buying at support, or let's just go down to the 4 hour so that we can do things the way it's supposed to be done. So on a 4 hour, I don't have any momentum shift there. The reason why I didn't mark any momentum shift on my 4 hour, let me show you guys why. Maybe we can put some education in the session as well. Is that it doesn't fulfill my rules. So yes, there is a higher high, higher close, but the candle that comes just before that higher close. So we're basically looking at this momentum shift here, right? You can see that this big candlestick moved up. The candle right before that, yes, we do have a higher high and a higher close, obviously bigger than this previous candlestick there, but that candlestick is not red. What I want, or the reason why I want to see a red candlestick, is because I always tell the people that I host one-on-one sessions with that think about the market. But there's Aya's in the building. I want to change your perspective when we have sessions. Think about the fact that people are making decisions with money. People are buying and people are selling. If this candlestick is red, I know for a fact that there was a seller for this 4 hours, and maybe this seller that was in the market there is trapped, because that's what it is. This is a bear trap. Bullish engulfing is the same thing as a bear trap, where we've got this red candlestick over here, and there's some sellers that are trapped inside of this red candlestick. And obviously, if this buyer is in control, the buyer that caused this bullish engulfing, if he is in control and he is in this market and he's the market maker, whoever this guy is with millions of dollars that can move the market, if this guy is watching the market, he's not going to let whoever sold over here, he's not going to let this guy enter into profits. Obviously, price action will never go below this red candlestick. So I want to see a bear trap. It doesn't just matter that we've got a higher high, higher close. The conditions also matter. Why do I want a red candlestick versus a green candlestick or a blue candlestick in my case, but a bullish candlestick? Anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about here, the most recent price action. So otherwise, yes, we are in some sort of a downtrend, making lower lows. I want to pull this up, making lower lows and lower highs, but you guys can see that we're doing so, we can say, almost in a corrective manner. Cool. Someone can argue against me that it's not very corrective, and I won't argue back because I can also see that it's not very corrective, but it is slowing down. And if you take into account context that this was very impulsive, and what happened as we started coming towards support, yeah, price action started to look very different than it was looking when we were closer to resistance. So whoever was selling aggressively stopped selling aggressively, or at least some buyers started coming in and started challenging whoever was selling aggressively, which is what we want to see. So nonetheless, nothing changes about the setup. We've got our support there, or our low. Obviously, we're waiting for price action to come down towards this low. We're going to be paying attention to two things. How does price action come towards the low? What does price action do at the low? And those two things will always be more than enough information for me to make a decision whether I am going to buy or whether I'm going to sit on my hands. Otherwise, we spoke about the setup on a daily. So AU, let's look at NZDUSD before we stray too far from these dollar quote pairs, because I do want to show you something. There is a little bit of a smarter play that we can look for on NU than there is on AU. So on NU, things are almost the same as AU. So let's not waste time repeating whatever we would have said on AU. Otherwise, momentum, corrective structure. If we look at context on our daily, there's our support trend line here. The reason why it's funny and it's not really touching anything there is because I'm using these two lows, my two most recent touches, to obviously draw my support trend line over there. It's most recent price action will always give me the most relevant data. So otherwise, using my most recent lows there, we're at the support if we take into account where we are right now. If we look at the daily, we also got some sort of a bullish engulfing momentum shift, whatever. If we drop down to a 4 hour, so we're bullish because of context where we are. If we drop down to a 4 hour, sort of very similar to AU in a sense, but we came down somewhat corrective, but somewhat impulsively. But you guys can see that once we got to the support trend line, we started moving more sideways than we were moving more down. So I am seeing some sort of a buyer, or whatever the case is. But what I want to do in my most recent price action is I want to focus on where I'm going to, which is down there, where I'm expecting some sort of a buyer to come into the market. And what I've got here in my most recent 4 hour structure. So I've got this high, I've got this low over here. What I'm waiting for is for price action to break my low and come into where I'm expecting my buyer on a higher time frame. Once price action is in here where I'm expecting my buyer on a higher time frame, all I'm doing is waiting for a reversal structure, be it a double bottom, descending structure, inverse head and shoulders. I'm waiting for a reversal structure inside of this momentum shift here. Let me see if we can refine this on a 4 hour and make it a specific POI. Beautiful, we can. How lovely is this? How lovely is this? This setup just got 10 times better than it was the first time I looked at it. There we go. We've got a specific POI to be working with on a 4 hour, which makes our job very simple. So all we're waiting for is just for price action to break below this low. Once we're below this low, we know this is the specific area where we're expecting whatever reversal structure we're expecting to form here. This is the specific area where we're expecting this reversal structure to terminate. This is where we want to find our entry. And obviously, if price action or when price action does get inside of this area here, we will be looking to be bullish. Nice and simple. So I feel like in terms of the two, if you compare NZDUSD with AUDUSD, NZDUSD even gave us a POI, a nice specific point of interest for us to be working with. The price action looks almost very much the same. So if I was to take a risk, I would rather take my risk on NU rather than AU, unless things clear up a little bit more on AU and there's another structure that makes things better than NU. So don't know why my voice is so scratchy today, but otherwise, let's continue, guys. Let's continue. So we'll go back to our set list of pairs, go into New Zealand dollar CAD. So obviously, when we compare AUDCAD and New Zealand dollar CAD, we are more excited about New Zealand dollar CAD because AUDCAD, if we just look at it before we speak about NC, it's going to require some patience and there is no POI for us to work with. We need to wait for the structure to develop. If we look at NZDCAD, we do have a POI on the other hand to be working with. So otherwise, if we look at the structure, think about our NZD USD structure when we're looking at this. We've got a lot of momentum. We entered some sort of a corrective structure. At the support of this corrective structure, we started creating something else. We don't know what this something else is, but we're trying to figure out what it could be. Trying to make sense of what this something else is. We took into account that we've got this low over here. Obviously, price action came down impulsively towards this low, and we slowed down at this low. Why are we slowing or not? We don't know why we're slowing down, but what additional information do we have is on a daily, we've got this somewhat momentum shift over there, but on a 4 hour, obviously you guys can see that I've refined this down to a 4 hour. I see someone did say something there in the chat. Let me just finish here before I lose my train of thought before I check it out. But on a 4 hour, we do have our momentum shift over there. Obviously, specific or makes the area that we're looking to take our buy very specific. So NZDCAD. If we just come to the most recent 4 hour structure, things are fairly simple since that we've got our POI that is very close to where price action is now. What we're going to do is just let's wake up Monday morning after 9 hours. At least I only start trading from 9 a.m. So 9 o'clock, we'll see what price action does. Obviously, if price action is giving us momentum and we're breaking levels of structure, then I'm going to be looking at what momentum shifts price does leave, and then hoping that we obviously get a retest at those momentum shifts, obviously for some upside continuation. Otherwise, if we don't break any structure, any resistance, any 4 hour resistance Monday morning, then this is the POI, or this is the area where we're going to be looking for termination of whatever structure develops here. Obviously, we'll just isolate the structure if we can. Can I use a support trend line here? This is very nasty. It looks like if price action does break this low, then it's probably we expect it to be maybe a false breakout where we break out of the structure, maybe tap into our POI, break back into the structure, and then we continue things as per the structure because we're correcting to the downside. So otherwise, I'm sure you guys can see what's going on here. We'll look for this setup here on NZDCAD, a lot more clear than AUDCAD. Let me see what's going on in the chats before we move to NASDAQ. I analyze NAS 100. It's a buy. So let's go on to NASDAQ and see how our analysis differs. Because yes, we can be buyers, we can be sellers, we can be anything. Remember what our parents told us when you're growing up, you can be anything you want to be. Otherwise, same thing in the market, man. You can be anything. But I guess I would have to agree with you. I'm looking to be more of a buyer on NASDAQ, or at least I'm allowing myself to buy NASDAQ, and I'm going to be looking specifically to sell US30 just because of the differences in the structure, as much as I'm hoping that everything is just going to be selling from whenever it decides to just start selling. It's about time now. It's about time. But otherwise, if we just look at what's going on here, the reason why I'm allowing myself maybe to be a little bit more bullish. Okay, cool. We're inside some sort of a higher time frame corrective structure. We're moving sideways more than anything else. We can figure out, or we can isolate the direction, obviously based off the most recent structure, but we're moving sideways more than anything. So be a buyer, be a seller, doesn't really matter. You'll find opportunities. If we just look at what's been going on here from a 4 hour, this is the last major resistance, obviously, that has been broken to the upside over there. We broke this resistance. So obviously, we've got momentum to the upside. It's difficult for me to say momentum and to not think about the fact that we are moving more sideways than anything. I wouldn't say it's momentum, but in terms of the structure, we did just break resistance. But then again, we do have some context as to what's been going on here. We've got a beautiful momentum shift there. We see a whole crap ton of buyers came into the market from here that managed to break this resistance and whatever other resistance there in the past we broke. But if ever there's a spot where the buyers came in, that's where the buyers showed interest. So I've got a place to buy if price action does come a little bit lower. I don't think it's going to be helpful for me to drop down to the 1 hour, maybe on US30, but on NASDAQ, things are still moving. Things are very impulsive. I don't see any signs of market slowing down there. But yeah, the buy is ripe at this momentum shift over there. We can even refine it down to a 1 hour if you wanted to. You would be trading in the lower half of this overall square, whatever you want to call it, horizontal thing. But otherwise, if you want to maybe quantify or put English on your setup, here's your low here. To make your job simple, all you're waiting for is for price action to break this low. After you break this low, you're focused on a reversal structure. The reversal structure, this is where you're expecting that reversal structure to terminate. So obviously, if you find some descending structure, you're trying to look for your third touch inside of this POI. If it happens to be an inverse head and shoulders, maybe your head will be inside of this POI after you get your break above, and then you're waiting for your right shoulder. Doesn't really matter what you're looking for, but this is the POI where we're expecting that reversal structure to obviously terminate for a buy. Otherwise, if you still want to be a seller, I know on a 5 minute, there's an area inside of here, and I think up somewhere here, let's just maybe check it out. Cool. Here's the first POI over here on a 5 minute, and there's another POI up here. I was hoping price was coming for one of these two. Wait, let me do this. On Friday, I was very much hoping that price, because this was a sniper on Friday. Yo, guys, my heart was so sore that this was too early in the day, but this was beautifully tapped inside of this momentum shift over there at the third touch of the structure, but it was just too early, way too early, and I only start trading after Asian session. So I was just hoping that price does come back and maybe do something extra inside of there and then go down, but it just kept on going. But otherwise, the higher POI for us maybe to continue to be sellers if ever price action does give us that opportunity is somewhere over here. So either by this POI, I'm gonna delete, either by this POI over here or by this POI over here. I'm gonna delete this because it's not useful anymore. So yeah, if we're trying to be aggressive, this is where we need to be aggressive by. Otherwise, if price action does give us maybe the reversal and we end up coming up and whatever the case is, when price action comes all the way up here, then I'm willing to be a seller again. But for now, I'm going to be allowing myself to buy NASDAQ, right? So bullish on NASDAQ, just allow ourselves to trade these things in both directions, just in case we are wrong and the world doesn't crash and burn right now, and investors decide to pump everything back up again. On US30, on the other hand, on US30, so a higher time frame, we've got this ascending structure, right? Some sort of an ascending structure, first touch, second touch, we've got our third touch, we've got some sort of a sell off. So what we're looking for is, because context, where are we? Resistance over here. We broke above, we broke back below, we broke back below with nice momentum. So obviously we're focused on some sort of a corrective structure. If price does want to give us a corrective structure, to continue and follow through on this structure. And hopefully this is the beginning of the crash, or of the sell. Let's just say of the sell, because we don't know if it's just gonna crash or it's just a pullback, and then we just continue the pump until into next year. Yeah, hey, trading is the most interesting thing. Hey, you're trying to be a sangoma and predict the future, but then at the same time you've got to use reason and logic. But then at the same time you've got your emotions and your hopes and beliefs to also deal with. Otherwise, we've got this momentum over here, right? Last momentum, or at least last source of sellers. I see we've got a POI over there. We've got resistance over here, a bunch of equal highs. So obviously our job becomes a little bit simple in terms of the sell. This was last week's setup, basically, I think. Yes, this is last week's setup. I know last week I took two trades, one on NASDAQ. I bought NASDAQ. NASDAQ was good. US30 was bad. And US30 just wicked us out. I was just trying to catch if maybe the sell was coming a little bit early. That was the setup for the day. But otherwise, let's just speak about what are we looking for next week. That's more important. So on US30, I am going to be willing to sell US30, or at least I'm going to be looking for sell opportunities on US30. So maybe let's just drop down the time frames and see if inside of this push, I don't think I'm going to drop below 15. If there's nothing on a 15, it's so high. It's so high. It's so high. The only momentum shift on a 15 that I'd be willing to trade is very, 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 very high. So let's just do ourselves a favor. If price action is, because this looks, obviously we can see momentum when it's there. This is momentum. So obviously if price action maybe gives us a structure that increases our probabilities, maybe gives us a 3-touch structure, or some sort of a, maybe, I don't know, break above a level of structure, corrective structure, and then momentum shift. This is not a inverse head and a head and shoulders. This is not a head and shoulders. Head and shoulders, for me, I don't trade them as continuation structures. So I mean, like, we get a break above a structure, momentum back below, and or something that increases or gives us probabilities to sell inside of this momentum, then yeah, let's sell inside of this momentum. But right now, market is moving. I don't see anywhere safe that I can trade a sell or I can find a POI unless price action comes very high. So yeah, let's do one of two things, either exercise patience or exercise patience. But otherwise, let's just try and look for the sells on US30. Let's see what, no, CAD has nothing for us. No, should have something. CAD does. I don't know why this thing is not highlighted. Should be highlighted. CAD does have a setup for us, actually. Out of our JPY code pairs, oh, I just realized why I took it off. It's going to require some patience, but we can speak about it over there. If we just look at things from a 4-hour, we're at resistance. First touch, second touch, we're at that resistance over there. If you guys remember last week, what we were looking for was we were looking for this. We were literally looking for what happened on the pair. But what we were expecting was we added English to it. Obviously, we had things that we were looking for. So number one, we've got an ascending structure over there. Since we're looking to sell, price action is obviously inside sort of this, some sort of this bullish market or whatever you want to call it. We're going to be looking for reduced risk entries. So reduced risk entries would mean an entry that price action gives me after we've broken structure in the direction I'm looking to trade. So once price action breaks some sort of a support and gives us something worth trading, then we can look to sell at some break and retest or whatever we're gonna find. But for now, I'm not gonna be taking any, like, for example, if price action comes here and gives me some sort of a pin and an engulfing, I'm not gonna be taking a risk entry because price action could have done that 3 times or 4 times and still we've been moving higher correctively. So no risk entries on CAD yen, reduced risk entries only. But where we want to be, either if we get a reduced risk entry up high, that would be very nice, or if we break our structure here and get a reduced entry there, same difference. Yeah, we're looking to sell CAD yen. So otherwise, last pair that we're going to be looking at before we call it a session is UJ. So UJ, very much the same thing as CAD yen in a sense that we're not going to be looking for any risk entries because price action has clearly broken above the 2 POIs that we were looking for. We can even delete them because they are not important. They're not relevant anymore. Delete that, delete this also. Let's just delete all that nonsense. Cool. So if you look at what's been going on here on CAD yen, the reason why I'm hoping that now is the time BOJ decides to do something is because this is, I guess, the last structure that managed to break some sort of, or the last move that managed to break a level of structure. And this move to the upside is fairly impulsive because we broke resistance, we came back, we treated it as support. So we're kind of playing a guessing game here and just hoping that UJ is going to follow through. But otherwise, if we just look at where we are, resistance over there, I'm at this resistance context. Where's price action? We're at some sort of a resistance and we're close to some momentum shifts over there if you want to force that as a reason why you want to sell. But otherwise, what I'm going to be doing here, same thing, no risk entries, only reduce risk entries. We've got the fact that as long as we're above this support over here, obviously this low support trend line here, as long as we're above the support trend line, price is obviously in a bullish market, we're in a buyer's market. So we can't be looking to be sellers in a buyer's market. So what we're going to be doing is, since we've got this resistance over here, we either wait for some sort of something to happen on the top, reduce risk entry or whatever the case is on the top. If we don't find anything on the top, reduce risk entry from below. So once price action breaks some sort of a support in our direction that we're looking to trade, which is obviously we want to be sellers, then we're looking for our corrective structures to come back and tap into whatever momentum shifts we left in the impulsive break of structure. There will always be nature's theory to guide us and to add to context and whatever. The reason why we look for these corrective structures is because they tell us how people are making decisions. Are people being impulsive or people being corrective? And if they are being impulsive, where did the majority of the buyers decide to come in? Because that's where I want to be a buyer. If I'm in a corrective structure and I don't have a momentum shift or whatever the case is, what corrective structure are we forming? Because remember that when a corrective structure is forming, this is basically what they call is Wyckoff. This is basically Wyckoff. I don't know what else to think about but Wyckoff, because it's a reaccumulation. Obviously, if if price action is going to move up, then price action needs to reaccumulate to move up. And so obviously, If there is no POI, price action needs to work out whoever's in this buy, whoever's already in this buy. We need to convince them that there's a downtrend first, break lower lows and whatever, and get them out of the market. Whoever's going to be stupid enough to sell after we clearly have momentum inside of the structure here, obviously we're going to move price action so hard and so fast to the upside that we hit their stop losses and they're surprised. They don't know what happened when price was in a downtrend over here. But otherwise, price action needs to work. It needs to do something for something else to happen. So we'll wait for the nature of price action to give us the indication that, okay, cool, the sellers are in now. As of BOJ, that's a lost case for now. They decided that they're going to wait for the rest of the world to make decisions for them, and they're just not going to do anything. So that's why we see a whole lot of JPY weakness. Hopefully they'll think straight soon. Guys, I'm 100% done with the analysis. We've got like 2 minutes and 1 second left. So if anyone has any questions, now would be the time to pop your question there in the chat. We'll try and deal with your question ASAP and then we'll call it a session. We'll call it a session. Let's see who's in the building while I'm waiting for I see Kaya saying, do you trade impulse and correction? Exactly. My entire strategy is, or if someone was to ask me, what's your strategy in one sentence? My strategy is I am looking for corrective structures to trade the resulting momentum. So I am trying to get in on momentum, the impulse. That's what I want to do. I want to trade when there's an impulse. So my job is to find corrective structures that are obviously going to prepare me to trade the resulting impulse from that corrective structure. So all I'm doing is literally trading impulse, correction, impulse. Quite literally, to make what I'm doing sound very boring. Impulse, correction, impulse. That's literally what I am doing. But I see Aya's in the building. Aya would know that it's an oversimplification of the overall strategy. But yeah. Guys, let there be peace in the streets. We've got like less than 1 minute there. Thanks for being part of the session. Enjoy the rest of your guys' weekend, the rest of your guys' Sunday. Please remember the preparation. Don't go into Monday and just trade anything anyhow. Remember what you plan to do and trade the way you planned to trade, because you had reasons why you planned to trade this way. Guys, enjoy. Cheers. Let there be peace in the streets. Let our brothers and sisters be